Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. I am joined today by Clark Barron, a let's say the genius of marketing, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, among other amazing things that he does. Clark, how you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, man. I really appreciate you having me on. You being on the sales side, I know that there's going to be a really good conversation about to happen.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And for all of the I'll call them veterans of the cybersecurity industry, uh, this is one of the hardest industries I would think to market to and to even to start a conversation. A couple of years ago, uh, I'm here in San Francisco, and the RSA conference comes through. I don't know if they still do it, but at that time there were
Coming up here in
six.
just a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And is it still in San Francisco, or have they abandoned us also?
I believe so. I'm not sure though.
Okay.
I haven't checked. I know that I'm actually going to be traveling somewhere else that weekend, so FOMO has already set in for sure.
Oh man, it looks awesome, and the reason I bring it up is there was over at that time. This is a couple of years ago. There were over 600 booths at
Mhm.
RSA, and I go, wow. When you start doing the math, that's a lot of sponsorship money, first of all, and second of all, if you're a cybersecurity professional, how does your head not explode? With
Right,
all the solutions that are out there.
right.
So, from your perspective, let me just ask you this: how did you get into this business, and what are your thoughts on marketing to this crazy market?
Yeah, so I used to be in the digital creative agency world. That was
Mhm.
like the first half of my career. I was working with everybody from Exxon to Jimmy Buffett, from everybody in between. And everything was pixel perfect, going after awards left and right. It was a different world. Earlier in my career, it chewed me up and spit me out. And I came into cybersecurity actually as an outsider. After I left the creative agency world, um, you know, had a nervous breakdown, hiked the Appalachian Trail, almost didn't come back, and tried to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. And I had always romanticized cybersecurity, specifically red teaming and pen testing, like offensive security. Um, Unfortunately, code and my brain do not get along very well. Um, However, what I love about the industry is the mission and how important it is to our everyday lives in ways that we don't notice, we may never know, we may never comprehend. So I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to try to contribute in a meaningful way. So if I couldn't be the one to do it, I was going to dedicate my career to lifting up and empowering those that can on the marketing side.
And so, just taking a step back, when you were in the agency world, you said everything had to be pixel perfect, and eventually it chewed you up, spit you out, and you ended up on a vision quest. What? Why do you say pixel perfect? And what's it like for people that don't live in that world?
Well, I'm not sure many people live in that world anymore.
Hmm.
I once I got into security, for example, and just it's a different world. It's a different corporate culture.
Hmm.
Whether you're an enterprise or if you're a startup, especially in early stage, a lot of um, a lot of your go to market is predicated on just ship it.
Hmm.
It's iterate and learn and move quick, especially the pressure from VCs to just 10, 20, 30x everything. I hate nebulous statistics, multipliers like that, but hyper growth at all cost and all this. Like there's so much pressure to just get it out the door. Um,
Hmm.
Back in my day, as it were, in the creative agency world, we were allotted a certain amount of time um, that we had to make it perfect. We were going after like global design awards and um, and stuff like that, and working for, I mean, Exxon, for example,
Yeah.
perfect. Like anything less than perfect is unacceptable in that world.
Mm,
Because a lot of the success of those agencies are predicated on um, keeping those huge enterprise accounts, and they call the shots at every step of the way. I mean, also you're going after awards and whatnot and building notoriety for the house and all that. But yeah, it's wild
yeah, you're
because
making me you're making
yeah,
me nervous just thinking about it.
well, think of it this way: if I'm in house somewhere on a cybersecurity team or cybersecurity marketing team, I have one client. In the creative agency world before, I would have 47 clients and had to be perfect, nothing less.
Okay. Wow. That's the road to a burnout. I guess, well, some people they thrive in that, but that I couldn't deal. Okay. So now we go from 47 to 1. A cybersecurity company comes to you and they go, "Hey, we were just, cybersecurity company number 552 at RSA. How do we stand out? How do we get in front of people in this space?"
Stop spending money for a booth at RSA.
Okay.
That's step number one. Um,
Okay.
those monster shows like RSA, DEF CON's a little bit different, but it's particularly RSA. Um, I've had to talk CMOs off of ledges because they had gone all in on booths at RSA and no results. They get their badge scans or whatever, but no meaningful conversations, no opportunities. And they're in the hole 75 to 100 grand for a booth that sometimes they have messaging in a booth that doesn't make sense. Sometimes they're using too many buzzwords and too much jargon. Sometimes the people that are working the booth are not trained to interact properly with individuals that are walking by. Um, but like I said, that's given the benefit of the doubt in saying that someone's actually going to stop. And that's what I work with folks on. Um, Especially like particularly field marketing. When we're talking about booth design and messaging and how you're presenting the brand um, to literal just people window shopping, right?
Mm,
Um, there are so many nebulous, nonsensical buzz phrases and jargon in cybersecurity that if someone walks by and sees some of that, they're just going to walk by and laugh. And that happens all the time. And when we're working with such constrained budgets, you can't afford to do that.
mm.
Even if you had perfect messaging and whatever, you're still in a sea of 600 other vendors. Are you really going to commit 75% of your annual budget to a booth? Like if you're an early stage startup, not a great choice.
Yeah. And so in some cases they'll come to you and they're like, "We already dropped, 100 grand on the booth. Like, can you help us, to maximize the value?" But what you're saying is if they haven't, if they're thinking about, okay, we're looking out into the year and how are we going to market this product? We don't want to do the booth. We agree with you. Where should we, really focus and spend the money?
So let's take, for example, first of all, a lot of that depends on what
Yeah.
stage you're at, the maturity of the organization. If you are Splunk or Palo Alto or whatnot, yeah, you're gonna spend $1 million on a booth. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
If you're going after like enterprise accounts and you are a unicorn company, that's just a given. But if you're seed stage to A in that range, just quasi early stage cybersecurity startup, I would say any startup, regardless of the industry, just industry agnostic. Seriously consider just not doing that, especially the big shows. And I'll give you an example of how I've I've helped people kind of pivot away from that, but still have a field marketing um, motion going. Instead of, let's say, taking that $100,000 and sending everybody to RSA and buying a giant booth and all that stuff, let's take that budget and travel the country to events called B-sides. B-sides are events all over the country within the cybersecurity industry. They're smaller, they're usually regionally based, and they are full of practitioners. Practitioners that are there to compete in CTFs, like capture the flags, where they're there to learn things. They're getting certifications. They're taking courses from all these well-known cybersecurity pros. And the difference in those two plays is, one, you're going to spend all that money going to RSA and hope that a CISO walks by and just hands you their wallet, or you're going to divide and conquer, and you're going to get in front of a totally different segment of that audience, which are the practitioners, which is a much better play, considering the first thing, and this is a huge mistake that a lot of people make in cybersecurity, is they go after the C-suite, the CISO, right?
Sure.
And they put it up on a pedestal, not realizing that the first thing that they're going to do is send a Slack message to their team and go, "Hey, have you ever heard of this? Is this worth looking at?" And so instead of going top down, I like to build bottom up. It's cheaper, it's more effective if you're looking to build an actual long-term sustainable brand. And if you can get the practitioners on your side, you win.
Yeah, because if the CISO does that Slack message and it's crickets, nobody's ever heard of it, then there's your answer right
You're
there.
done.
And
Yep.
and the other thing that I could see happening is the marketer goes, okay, nobody ever got fired for sponsoring a booth at RSA. So I want to just do the tried and true path, and instead of like, I get what you're saying about the B sides, but that's a little bit, I'm not sure, and so I'll just do this thing that we do every year.
I have I have personally known of two CMOs that have gotten fired for spending way too much budget on RSA.
There you
It's
go.
I definitely wouldn't consider it one of those things that's just a safe play. Depending on how much you're putting into it, the time, the effort, the resources, um, we're being held accountable for qualified pipeline and opportunities, and what we're not talking about leads. Like the
Yeah.
goalposts have shifted, and there's still some weird wiggle room there. We got, for a long time, we got way on the other end of the spectrum. Yeah, some teams being held accountable for closed won revenue, which is insane. That's not my job. That's your job. Marketing doesn't generate revenue. It generates the ability to generate revenue. But also, we're
Okay.
not just going and trying to scan badges and just begging people as they walk past the booth. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't, what I'm not your buyer. Doesn't matter. Please let me just scan your badge. And then they come home with this giant list of emails and leads, and uh, folks are going, "Oh yeah, this is great, perfect." And then they start these automated email sequences and get 0% open rates and no opportunities and whatnot. And you've got C-suite and upper leadership tapping their toes, going, "Where's the ROI
What are
on
you
this?
doing? Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
what are you doing?"
What are you guys
And
doing?
that's
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, okay, so what from a digital perspective? Like, okay, we got to get out. We're gonna hit the road. We're gonna hit every B side out there. And then from a digital perspective, what do we do then? What do we do with the how do we drive the pipeline? You know, uh, now that we get back to the office.
One of the things that I do is I help people shift their mindset when it comes to, well, particularly in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is one of the last horses to cross the line when it comes to innovating in go-to-market strategies. And, not to say they're Luddites in any capacity. Obviously, they're some of the most intelligent human beings on the planet. Um, However, there are still a lot of those tried and true tactics that fall into the lead gen motion that are just not working anymore. And so when it comes to the digital experience, I mean, we've got to start shifting to providing as much value to the audience as humanly possible and shutting our mouths. Don't ask for anything. Stop
Hmm.
bothering people. You're not, the ways of old, you're not marketing to a persona anymore. You're not selling to a persona. Just because it's B2B doesn't mean that these people aren't still human beings. I try to teach empathy and self-awareness in marketing and in sales, because how would you feel? When is the last time you responded to a cold email? When's the last time you clicked on an ad? It's any of that, and especially in this industry, you're not going to hit their inbox. The normal native Gmail spam filter catches everything that comes through mine. Can you imagine what cybersecurity professionals have at their fingertips? Like, they don't want to be contacted by phone. You've really got to rethink it. And
Yeah.
so,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
especially when it comes to sales cycles that are 12 to 18 months anyway, and 3% of that market is going to be actually in market evaluating tools at any given time. You can't market to that 3%. You've got to market to the 97%. You've got to be top of mind when they're ready. And the only way to do that is to go all in on brand, go all in on content, and be the first thing they think of, because they cannot escape everything that you have given away. My goal is
Mhm.
to give away as much value as humanly possible, that on the off chance that I do ask you for something, you're going to feel guilty if you say no, because I've given
Yeah.
you that much value.
You paid it so forward. And it's almost in the back of my head, it's like you're not a marketing function, you're an education. It's almost like a university of, the problem that you solve. And you've created this almost like a curriculum for people to come into your world, and you're just teaching them. You're like teaching them about how to solve the problem. And then at some point, they're like, I always get the best information. This is the best community for me to be in. So what do you guys do? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Well,
that's crazy.
that's a really it's a really fine line to dance between,
Yeah.
because when you try to segment by, and this is where the traditional funnel, as it were, really has started to get super shady in a really weird gray area. Because if you
Okay.
think about it, um, problem unaware versus problem aware, for example, problem unaware, does that mean there's actually a problem? Or does that just mean that you're going to try to send those people a different kind of message? Is it really, maybe if we practice some self-awareness, or are we just being arrogant to think that no, it's you need us? We don't know that. We don't know
Mm.
that at all. Yet there are tons of companies that are pushing towards the people it's that are just not in their actual ICP, but they think they are.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, do I have a problem or do you have a problem? It's
Yeah,
like, if
yeah,
everybody's saying they don't have a problem, then it's actually your problem as the vendor, you know?
right. Yeah, let's
Wow.
take a look at
Okay.
that product
Yeah.
market fit.
Yeah, and that's like, again, as you see probably in your work, if the cybersecurity company has a big investment from a bunch of people and they're all sitting there tapping their, fingers on the desk going, "Hey, when are we going to get our money back?" Or when are you going to 10x your growth? Then the marketer at that company is like, I don't care if you have the problem or not. Like, I just want you to come in and be a lead, so we could talk to you.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You have to have some very difficult conversations up front as soon as humanly possible. Um,
Okay.
it doesn't matter if you define it as an MQL, an SQO, SQ. Don't care what it's called. I'm tired of acronyms. As long as everybody agrees on what it is, you'll be just fine. But there's so many things where KPIs and metrics that marketers are being held to, it's just a moving goalpost. It's constantly moving.
Yeah.
You have to have that conversation up front, or you'll get in trouble real quick.
Okay. And so this is it's that dichotomy because it's a long game. It's a long game of marketing and education and bringing people in, but at the same time, nobody has any time. We need you to hurry, 10x
Right.
the revenue. So it's like, how do you balance that? Last question about that is SDRs. So
Mm.
BDRs, SDRs. This is like 10 years ago when I was in your space. It was really hard to run a SDR program in cybersecurity. I don't even know how people do it today. I know a lot of companies have them and they're calling on it, and maybe they're calling it their install base or partnerships or VARs or something. Is that a viable option for pipeline development?
I wouldn't do it.
Okay.
I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way. If you're asking if running that kind of motion is effective, consider the fact that sales doesn't want to deal with them anymore and they've pushed it onto marketing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's in between. It's here. I don't want to deal with this. You take it, and
Yeah,
it's almost like a hot
there's
potato. Yeah.
right. You can say that the goal is to set meetings or whatnot. They're cold calling. They're cold
Yeah.
emailing. That's sales.
Mhm.
That's not marketing. Um,
Yeah.
Find me one marketer on the planet that got into marketing if they're really passionate about this, if they really love what they do. Find me one of those people that got into marketing to run a team of BDRs. I'll
Mm.
wait.
How time do you got?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a specialty. And I can't. I imagine a cybersecurity professional in this black box somewhere that's like air gapped, against the world. And there's a bunch of SDRs out there trying to cold call them. Give me a break. I just don't see it. But I know that there's companies doing it and they're being successful. But I don't know. Maybe I've just been out of the game too long. So
But yeah, it's
yeah,
one of those things that I have very polarizing opinions on for sure. I
yeah,
look at from the human being perspective. Would
yeah.
would you like to get cold called nonstop all day long every single day that you're trying to work? That's the life of a CISO. Uh,
Mm.
Most of them have their phones off during the day, all day. Most of them don't have a phone in their office at all for that very reason. And that's the only reason, the single reason. Most of them have a bat phone that's like family only, and that's it. Like,
Smart. Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because I see both sides, and in the intersection. It's almost like a battle because on the SDR technology side, they're developing more and more solutions so that you can now make 1,000 cold calls a day and 10,000 cold calls a day, and the CISOs are over there going, "I've got 4 phones, and this one's for my kids, and
right.
so it's crazy." Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of technology, especially when it comes to cold calling and that sort of outreach. That terrifies me when I hear that companies are doing that or they're evaluating tools to try to ramp up that motion because you might hit your numbers, but how much of your addressable market are you going to burn to the ground trying to hit it?
And they hate your guts now.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, another mystery that I want to solve with you is Gartner. Okay.
Mm,
So, I'm sure that you run into this. So, I think that the idea of Gartner is that there's 600, booths at RSA. No CISO or whatever has enough time to sift through every single pitch and figure it out. So, I'll just buy the Gartner quadrant and then you tell me the top three and I'll just go talk to them. So is this still the way it is? Am I correct in that? And what are your thoughts on that's a significant investment?
Gartner is the worst thing to ever happen to B2B in the history of mankind.
Go.
Yeah, it's if there is a very small subsect of each industry. Let's take cybersecurity for example. If you're willing to shell out that kind of money, and you are a large, the same people they're buying booths at RSA, and it actually
Okay.
makes sense. If you are the upper echelon of companies within this industry, you could probably stand to throw some money at it.
Mhm.
But just know that if you are not one of those companies, you are throwing money down the toilet. It is not worth your budget. It's maybe that's the way uh, the C-suite evaluates tools at the most enterprise organizations out there,
Mm.
but there are entirely different markets that one they hate Gartner. They know that that it's pay to play. They know that their team is probably on to the on the bleeding edge of what's new and what's really innovative and what's really making waves without having to shell out the money for a tool that would be in the magic quadrant.
Mhm.
It I thought it was money laundering for the longest time. That's how much I hate it. I hate Gartner. I hate Forrester, Frost and Sullivan. Like all of it doesn't matter. Those type of firms they literally just make stuff up. They're like Gartner's when it comes to marketing. uh, Gartner's 2024 predictions, like and beyond, where they went all the way to like 2050 or something like that. Like you're just making it up. You're making stuff up. It was marketing fan fiction written by a gorilla on Quaaludes. Like it was the worst piece of. It was awful, awful.
Okay, and I think so. So the hope is that nobody's going to read this in 2024 and then read it again in 2050 and come on and say, "Hey, you were wrong about all this stuff." It's just like a sugar high of predictions, and we look smart, and now you move on with your day. But but on the getting on the Magic Quadrant and things like that. So it sounds like it depends where you are as a cybersecurity company in your life cycle if you want to engage in this. Because is there definitely, if you're going to be over on the left bottom side or in the middle even, is it even worth it for you? And are you ever going to
Yeah.
be in a sales cycle where someone pulls out the Magic Quadrant and says, "Hey, how come you're not over up and to the right?" I mean, does that ever happen? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It does.
it
It,
does. Okay.
it certainly does. It really depends because there's another way to evaluate that entire motion, whether you want to
Okay.
get involved or not. Aside from how much money, even if you have an unlimited budget to throw at something like this, what I've found is that a CISO may glance at it, might look at the quadrant, stay up to date. Like that's what they're doing. It's very common for them to start that be one of the first places they look. I don't want to say start there. The first thing they're going to do is ask their colleagues, ask their peers within the industry. Private Slack channels and Discord servers full of CISOs and whatnot. They're talking every day about scumbag marketers like myself in the industry. But uh, one thing that I would really note here is that there's again, just like the whole B-sides thing, there's an different, entirely different facet to the actual evaluation and buying committee, as it were, when it comes to selecting tools. Um, and that's the practitioners. And so, do they give a crap about the Magic Quadrant?
No.
Do they? You sure about that? Like, not really. They're going to have a conversation that goes, "Hey, CISO is going to say, hey, look at these. are any of these quadrant people, is this worth looking into? They're going to go, eh, mm, maybe, I don't know. But what they're really going to know is what it's like to use all those tools in the Magic Quadrant. And they're going to be able to say they might be in the quadrant, they might be at the very top, but for what we do here, it's not going to work. Or it's a pain in the ass. Like it's not right for us. That's why you have to pay attention to the practitioners, because they have those kind of insights that drive buying decisions, um, that are just invaluable.
Yeah. And how if the practitioners are in the trenches, they're doing their job every day, how can you introduce a new product into the workflow? And do you have to give it away for free? Do you have to know, their cousin or something like that? Like, how do you slide it in there? Because otherwise, they're probably inundated with choices of different products, right?
Yeah, there's some really interesting things going on in our industry and the way that folks are approaching that. Um,
Hmm.
there is a grassroots, I guess you could call it, movement to go bottom up instead of top down, and folks are exploring things like sponsoring B-sides and stuff like that. But we're
Yeah.
also seeing a lot more online events. Um, for example, uh, the World Hacker Games. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Uh, a cybersecurity tool can sign up to have their tool tested in real time, live streamed
Wow.
by ethical hackers, and they just beat the crap out of it. Just they pen test it in real time, live, and
Wow.
that is how you win the hearts of the practitioners. You
Hmm.
you you have to say, here you go, break it.
Yeah.
I show I want to be better for you. I want this product to be better because we care about the people that are actually going to be using it. And if
Yeah.
long gone are the days, in my head, I'll say, not necessarily in practice from everybody in the industry, but we're still having people that um, don't want to give demos on a web, or don't want to show a demo on the website. You don't want to have a video where you show the back end of the product. You won't have pricing on your website, at least not a ballpark figure. Um, there there are companies that are starting to wisen up from that, and are
Mhm.
starting to realize that, oh, there are some PLG motions that are possible with certain products. For I'd say the majority of them, not really, especially like the on-premises stuff. Um, but there are a lot of early stage companies that are going, everybody's been doing this for 100 years and it's not working. Like, what? Why is everything a secret? But if
Yeah.
if we're not showing our product, then there's no product.
Yeah.
And so they're like ungated on demand demos on page, just built with things like Novatic, for example,
Mhm.
letting people just kind of tinker around. There are several other things that uh, Dr. Chase Cunningham is working on one as well. Dr. Zero Trust,
Mhm.
working on a really cool POC like demo platform. Like uh, there's so many ways in which we've got to change the way we guard our product from everybody. Because
Mhm.
if your product was good, if you're really confident in the value that it could bring to a potential customer, then why do you care if your competition sees it? Why is the need there to just have a salesperson on a demo call? Like, no, stop that. Just let people experience your brand, your product in the way that they want to. Not the
Mhm.
not the kind of funnel that you're going to try to force them down. And that's where the disconnect happens. Is a lot of our goals are based on those touch points, those,
Mhm.
those interactions, so we can qualify people, so we can change a life cycle stage in HubSpot.
Hmm.
None of that serves your audience. None of that serves your customer. It's all arrogant and self-serving. And so if we can correct things on our side, then we can allow ourselves to experiment with producing new experiences online that will actually reduce a lot of the friction in the buying process, which regardless of the industry, um, B2B
Yeah.
is horrible about friction in the buying process.
Yeah, it's almost changing your mindset from the old, funnel and the vanity metrics that we're looking for to becoming a partner with and really with the practitioner to really get in there and be able to support them to do their job better. And then, it's going to grow from there. They may or may not hear from the CISO, but they need to be able to crush it. Um, and you mentioned something really, really important. There's these communities happening. There's these conversations that are happening out there among the practitioners and among the CISOs and different groups. Can a company just start a community and say, "Hey, we're a community now. Everybody join us." And just like it seems weird because isn't a community sort of a uh, organic thing that springs up on like a Discord server versus something forced like that?
Yep, absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah, companies that try to start their own community, um, it's very misguided, very, very misguided.
Okay.
When we say like start building communities, that's not for you, Zoom info. No, we didn't mean you. Um,
You did it.
yeah, who wants to be a part of that? Who wants to be a part of a community that is totally predicated on a company looking to get a return on that? And even if they're not necessarily getting a return, they're counting on influence within that community. You're
Mhm.
you're going to the Zoom Info community, for example, or whoever. That's just the latest one that I know we've previously talked about, to try to spin up one of these communities. Communities happen, just like you said, organically,
Mhm.
and to try to uh, manufacture that sort of connection amongst people, it's very inauthentic to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why there's such a push to do it, other than it's just cool. It's just the
Yeah.
latest thing. One of the latest things that people are talking about is community building. Um, the only thing that B2B companies should be doing in terms of community is trying to figure out where the communities are that are full of their buyers and try to market to those people and engage in a meaningful way. And we provide as much value as you can to that community. Let them
Yeah.
exist as an independent entity without saying, "Hey, cool kids, come on over to the, whatever." I have a Costco membership. Do I go hang out at Costco with all the Costco people? No. But if Costco started like a club, a community, like I'm assuming we would meet at Costco. Guess how many hot dogs they'd sell? Exactly. Like it doesn't matter who it is. Like no one wants to be a part of that. Um,
It's funny because especially if you're a company that everybody hates, and literally they hate your guts, and then you start a community, and it's like,
of
okay,
all
so
companies to do that, yeah,
can I join your community and complain about how sucky of a company you are? Like it's
yeah,
very strange. So okay, I think they spin them up like because back to your CISO example. The CISO is in some secret CISO community on a Discord server talking about should I buy X or Y, with their friends. And the X and Y want to, penetrate and infiltrate, that conversation so they know what's going on. So they start their own community and they go, "Oh, hey CISO, come and join our community." Give me a break. I don't know. It just doesn't seem. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing
yeah,
something. But
yeah.
um, Other thing I wanted to ask you about is there's so much advice, and especially in your world. I mean, everybody's a marketing expert, right, in the whole world. Um, and so, and I say that, facetiously, but everyone's got all this great advice, and there's sort of a bubbling up of, I guess you could say, B2B influencers. Okay.
Mm.
And it's gotten to the point where I feel like there's so much advice out there that you're drinking from a fire hose of advice, and it's hard to know, is this advice good for me, and is it contextualized to my situation? What are your thoughts? Should all companies have an influencer? Should they have an influencer strategy for as part of their marketing?
The first thing everyone in B2B should do is stop saying the word influencer.
Okay.
Stop it. Stop it. There's such a negative connotation there.
Okay.
That a perceived um connotation, a negative connotation that we get from like Instagram influencers, for example. Big difference in those and a B2B influencer. Now, I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt. More than likely, there's just no other term. I get it, but we can't beat that term into the ground, and or else everything is going to go awry. When it comes to B2B influencers, like having internal influencers, sure, but great, you should. However, in order for that to be successful, you have to be very, very, you have to do your due diligence when it comes to these people. In cybersecurity, there are influencers um, that are world class experts at what they do. They already come prepackaged with their own massive audiences, like cult like followings. It's some of the coolest stuff to work in. It's really, really exciting. And we're seeing more and more organizations not necessarily bring them on, but have serious long term arrangements with them in terms
Mhm.
of sponsoring everything they do, whether it be a YouTube channel, their Twitch live streams, whatever. So there's a lot of really cool things happening. Now, the opposite end of that spectrum, and here's where you get into a lot of trouble, is where the person that you're working with is not a verified, like peer vetted, industry trusted subject matter expert. If it is just, that's where we get into the realm of influencer. Um, and
Mhm.
I'll say that with that inflection. Like that's where you get into the influencer world. Um, on LinkedIn, you see it a lot actually, and you're starting to see it more and more and more, where you see the same people, you see the same folks doing take page takeovers and all promoting the same stuff, and it's like, okay, this is the third time this week that the marketing cool kids club has tried to shove something down my throat. Like that's where it starts to get a little unhinged. That's where it starts to get off the rails.
This is
um
getting weird. Okay. And I know for a fact, if you're an influencer out there, the FCC has rules that if you're being sponsored, you have to mention that in the post, or else you could get in trouble. So you heard it here first, folks, because I see a lot of stuff where this has got to be sponsored, and there's no indication of that. And that's a little skeezy. Um, but it's interesting because in our world, you'll have somebody who was like a BDR for 6 months, and then they were doing something else, and now they're an expert in sales, and they're giving all this advice. And no offense, everybody's got to make a living. It's totally fine, but it's just like, I don't know. Can you like, is there some sort of gold seal or certification or something that says this person is actually someone who is qualified to give this advice? I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, that's yeah, you're on the right track, and
Okay.
unfortunately, no, there's not. And what that means for you is you're going to have to do your due diligence. You're going to have to personally vet them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and like I said, not all. I mean, there's such a proliferation of advice now. It's like
Mhm.
I think the skill moving forward is consolidating and curating and actually making things actionable versus. And I'll be the first to admit I'll fall into the consumption trap of just getting great advice all day, and then it's all of a sudden, hey, it's 5 o'clock. I haven't actually done anything with this. So it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Clark,
Cool.
this has
I
been
feel that.
so interesting, man. And I have one last question for you. We're a little bit over time, but you've got this amazing array behind you for the folks that are on audio. And not on video. I mean, we've got like there's villages, there's homes, there's weaponry. What do you got going on back there?
I I'm very much so a Lego addict.
Okay.
It's all Lego. This is the medieval village. This is the A-frame cabin. These are some other set. That's an AS Rock motherboard that I took out of an old PC that I built, not a Lego, but
Looks
taking
like
stuff
it
apart,
fits in.
putting it back together.
Yeah. Wow.
Right over here, with the off screen, there is a giant Hogwarts built out of like 30 modular sets. Um,
Wow.
a Viking village. Yeah, they're.
Oh
I'm
my
gonna have
gosh.
to build another house for all the Legos.
Yeah. This is a bit, and I'd like to come and check it out, but my kids would go absolutely nuts if they walked into your room right now because they're still really passionate about it. Amazing array. Clark, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom. I have a list of to-dos here. I'm really going to do these things, and especially thinking about practitioners and education and working alongside. That's and every SDR wants to call the CISO and set an
Mhm.
appointment, and I think they're barking up the wrong tree. So, thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming out and sharing your wisdom.
yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'll give you a shameless plug. If you're looking for more information on getting to practitioners, go to my LinkedIn page and download my agency's latest paper on this exact topic.
A hundred
It
percent. And
yeah.
how do we? I should have asked you that. I'm sorry. How do we get in touch with you if they want to take a look at your services and
Oh
what?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so it's deployronan.com. That is my agency's website. We're a cybersecurity GTM agency that works exclusively in the cybersecurity space. With tons of marketers, sales folks, and CISOs on board with us. And we help uh, cybersecurity vendors with these exact issues. And as far as me personally, I pretty much live on LinkedIn. You can get me anytime. Happy to help and in any way I can. And if I can't, then I'll find somebody that can.
100%. And I think it's a great opportunity. You're going to have your work cut out for you, man. There's a lot of there's a lot of people that need help. And so, Clark, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you on the next show.
Yeah, David, thanks so much. This is a great conversation. Really appreciate you having me.